Hi everyone, it's Natasha. I wanted to share with you a project for Wild Orchid Crafts. I made a little gift box and it's for a specific recipient. So let me show you what I used. The die is from Lifestyle Crafts, which has been purchased by We Are Memory Keepers, and I'll include all the links, the full recipe to everything in the About section. So it's a Staples ivory cardstock, which is 110 pound weight, and an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper cuts out this entire box in one cut. Has perforated fold lines, really easy to put together. I used red line tape to adhere all the pieces, and on top of it I have a sheet of this plumeria paper from Basic Gray, and this really pretty, almost that Pantone, is it Pantone? Orchid, which is the color for 2014. I thought that would be nice to use, so I used that plumeria paper, and I'll put the rest leftovers. And this is just one 6x6 sheet of paper that I used, and these are the leftover pieces. So that was the plumeria paper from Basic Gray. I added pieces to each of the sides, but I only decorated the front. So on the front I created this little embellishment out of this particular, I think it's memory box jar die. So it has the jar and the lid, and I opted not to cut these apart just because I didn't want to lose the little lid piece. And for the jar, I'll show you how dimensional it is right there. I cut it twice with the ivory Staples cardstock, and then once on this with the silver. And the silver that I use is my favorite hardware find, which is the duct work tape. It's adhesive on one side. I just attached it to a piece of ivory cardstock for stability, a little more heft. So I created the little lid right there, and then I just have flowers coming out of it. And in the background is an MFT die, My Favorite Things mini doilies, which is this little ornate one. That's the backing from the sticky duct work tape. So I have that in the background, and then dimensionally adhered the 2 layers of the jar. And then this tiny little label is from Stephanie Bernard, Stamps of Life. I love this little flag. And that's also cut with cardstock and a layer of the silver duct work tape, which I then ran through a Cuttlebug folder. I think hands down my favorite one, Swiss Dots. I use it for everything. It's very, very practical. Nice little dot texture. The edges of each of the papers, once they were cut, because the core of the paper is white, I did rub my little dauber with the Distress ink in Dusty Concord, just so you don't see the white, because the box is cream instead of white. I didn't want that to stand out quite so vividly. So it's not quite grungy or distress, it just takes away that white core edge. And then in the corner over here I have a little tiara with tiny little bling. The tiara is from Quick Cuts, which Quick Cuts was the company name before Lifestyle Crafts. I'm not sure whether this is available anymore or not, but once I resource it, I will include that information in the About section. And then that's cut twice, again in the silver and cardstock layers, and on top of each are the tiny little blings, and that's from this multi 3, 4, and 5 millimeter rhinestone pack. And again, I'll have all the codes listed below, and this is in lilac. It also comes in purple, an array of colors, but the lilac and the purple were the 2 that I pulled out, but I definitely used the lilac because it was lighter. I didn't want to go too dark. Now the flowers are cherry blossoms, and they're from a mix, 100 pack mix of purple, lilac, and white Sweetheart Blooms. So here's some of the colors. Here's all the colors. The white creamy color, the one I used, which is that lilac. And and then the other deeper purples. So it's a nice selection in one package. And then in addition to, I just added a little S, and that little S is from Provo Crafts Cuttlebug letters I've had for quite some time in my stash. So on top is a little mixed color flat back pearl in diamond, and it really is rhinestones. It's not plastic. It's very, very blingy. So that's the code for that. You can also mix it up if you didn't want to use something like that. I pulled out a couple of other options that I think would work just as nicely in the center. There's this little plastic blingy thing, little circle. Oh, no, that's a hearts. And that's these diamond circles. And I keep little things like this in little containers like this, just easier to maintain. Or if you're making a Valentine's project, you can always do the little hearts right there. That would be lovely. And these can be colored with alcohol markers. So they come in clear, but you can certainly color them up. Or this cute little flower with diamond center. So that's just some of the options that I could have used, but I really like the fact that this like orchid color pearl was in the center. So that's why I used that. So that's the big box. Oh, and I also used some seam binding, and the seam binding comes in an array of colors. There's also a mini, and this particular die is from Sizzix, and I just have one flower on there and a couple of stamens wrapped around the flower. So I attached it with glue, hot glue, and then I just wrapped one of each of these two pearl stamens in the lilac and the silver. So it picks up similar colors that I used in the larger one, and that's going to be tied on excuse me, on the larger box once I fill it. And I'm going to fill it with, I'll show you some little goodies. So it opens up like this, and there's plenty of room to tuck in. I cut out some of these dies for the tiny little box, little takeaway box, and a bunch of spool dies that I have shared recently in other videos for storing twine or seam binding or floss, all sorts of things, loose pieces. So I have some that are in this really cool Recollections paper that looks like a cream and black toile, and then a bunch of plain cream color or ivory. So that, and then everybody wants some candy, so this is going to be stuffed with the rest with haichu in green and purple, if you notice, to coordinate with the rest of the project. And this tiny little one is filled with the itty bitty tiny little spools and some hearts and flowers, because I don't think the recipient has either of those two. So I'm going to tuck this all together and then tie it on with the green ribbon and pop that in the mail. So there's my project for Wild Orchid Crafts. It looks like flowers are blooming out of a, mason jar, but really blinged up. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Don't forget to thumbs up, and check out what the other designers are making on the Wild Orchid Crafts channel. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching.